In the news tonight, 2 new COVID-19 cases confirmed. Food ration helpline inundated with calls. And ministry announces new areas of interest.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Ateda Lendua.
Good evening, Fiji. 2 new COVID-19 cases have been confirmed by the Ministry of Health. They are the 5-year-old and 15-year-old daughters of the mother from Cunningham. Permanent Secretary for Health, Dr. James Fong, says both cases were confirmed in isolation. Dr. Fong says their first tests were negative. That means they do not pose a risk to the public and bear no implication on their existing plan of contact tracing.
I've spoken before on the life or death importance of Fijians of all ages adhering to the protocols we've established. And I can now give you a concrete example of why that is so important and how serious the risk is. The entire family of a person in Cunningham who contacted COVID-19 have also contacted the virus. That's 7 household members in total. Let that be a lesson on how transmissible this variant is and how vital it is that the measures are followed by everyone.
Apenisa Wangairandovu joins us live now. Apenisa, with 2 new cases announced, what other updates has been given on the current status of contact tracing?
Atela, the 2 new cases confirmed tonight tells us the serious consequences of COVID-19. The fact that if it's late to detect the cases, it will take time for it to spread from one person to the other, and then it being noticed later. And that being said, Dr. Fong tonight is saying that the fact is that now 7 of the family of the woman who had attended the funeral in Lautoka, relatives of the woman who had attended the funeral in Lautoka. Now all of them are now in quarantine, and the 2 children tested positive while in quarantine, and there is no risk to the community where they were taken from.
Thank you, Apenisa. There's a possibility that the province of Ra will go into lockdown. Permanent Secretary for Health, Dr. James Fong, has hinted a while ago that they might take the necessary step as their investigation into the 2 unconnected clusters in the province continues.
Again, this is another part where I have to actually say it again and again. Before we did this lockdown, I said we might get there in the hope that people will prepare. Unfortunately, when we went into the lockdown, a huge number of people said they were not prepared. We cannot give you a specific time when we're going to call the lockdown. The lockdown has to happen when it needs to happen. But we can only say it might happen. I'm telling Raki now, it might happen.
Ministry of Health has so far carried out 52,040 COVID-19 laboratory tests. Head of Health Protection, Dr. Alicia Sahu Khan, says they have carried out 802 tests per day over the last 7 days. Dr. Sahu Khan says the ministry has increased its testing capacity.
Testing, of course, has increased in line with the response to this outbreak, with 1,026 tests conducted over the last 24 hours. Our overall test positivity is 0.2%, and our daily 7-day average daily test positivity is now at 0.6%.
Kritika Kumar joins us live now. Kritika, what progress has the ministry made in terms of testing and swabbing?
Ateda, the lockdown got off to a wet start last night, which to some extent hindered the swabbing and the testing process of the health ministry in the Suvarnasori corridor. The Ministry of Health has identified 877 contacts of case 113. Case 113 was the garment factory worker.
Thank you, Kritika. The Health Ministry has released areas of interest that a recent COVID-19 case visited in the Pacific Harbour and Navua areas. The ministry's response teams have already identified some people who may have come into close contact with the case at these venues. The areas of interest are Max Value, Vinod Patel, and Jaxofiji Navua, which the patient visited on Monday 26th and Tuesday 27th of April between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. On Tuesday, between the same hours, the patient visited the Hot Bread Kitchen in Navua from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. He visited Grace Road Service Station in Nakaulevu, Kundansing in Pacific Harbour, and Rajiv Service Station. The Health Ministry is requesting Fijians who may have been present at any of these locations to remain in their homes and call 158. Lena Rees joins us live now. Lena, what other details were revealed at the press conference this evening?
And one of the things that was highlighted is that not many Fijians were prepared for this current lockdown. And this is just specifically for the Suva-Nosori corridor. Again, a lot of people were not prepared. Dr. Fong had highlighted that they did keep mentioning, they continued to highlight that there is a possibility the last resort would be a complete lockdown. And that's what's happened within the Suva-Nosori corridor. On that note, he has highlighted that this may also be a possibility for Rakiraki. Currently, there is no lockdown no full lockdown in Rakiraki. However, they do have containment areas within that location. He has put residents and Fijians within that area on notice. This could be a possibility. If you are living in the Rakiraki area, you need to be prepared. Dr. Fong also highlighted the importance of vaccinations. It's central to controlling the virus, to ending the pandemic, and to keeping Fijians safe. So they will continue with this.
Thank you very much, Lena. The Ministry of Health received close to 100,000 calls on its food ration hotline as of 12 noon today. Permanent Secretary Dr. James Fong says it was disappointing that members from the same family inundated the line with calls. Dr. Fong says attempts to gain from the system only succeeded in delaying the delivery of the food to Fijians with genuine reasons.
We know where to deliver them. And tomorrow I'll come up with, there's a group of us who will come up with a better program to try and ensure that as much of the food packs get to those who need it as possible. Our COVID-19 food ration hotline went live this morning. We received 100,000 calls as of noon today. However, I was disappointed to learn that several members of same households inundated the number with calls. So sometimes in some families you had 5 people in the family and all 5 of them ringing for one package. We were clear yesterday, food is to be distributed on a household by household basis.
Fijians are again being reminded to only call the 161 toll-free food ration helpline if they genuinely require ration. The helpline was inundated with calls, as I mentioned earlier, from Fijians in the lockdown areas from this morning. Minister for Economy Ayasaid Kayum says people who can afford or have food supplies should not make calls, as they will be depriving those who genuinely need the assistance. Due to the large volume of calls, many people were unable to get through. To solve this issue, Fijians are alternatively requested to email their details to covid19rations@gmail.com. Lena Rees reports.
The Minister for Economy is encouraging Fijians to be honest when using the food ration helpline.
Sometimes we find that there are a lot of people from the same family, 4 or 5 people calling from the same family, living under the same roof, making 4 or 5 different phone calls. And obviously that's not correct, it's not right. You're depriving and taking up the time on the line of those people who genuinely need to get through.
With over 330,000 Fijians living within the Suva-Nosori corridor that is currently on lockdown, Minister for Economy Ayasaid Kayum is urging Fijians to be patient.
People are calling on 161. There's obviously been a huge number of calls. A lot of people are waiting in the queue. We ask them to be please patient, and your calls, of course, will be answered by these very able young men and women.
Vodafone Fiji says they work to fix any issues they had and are confident they will be able to take calls from those who are in need of assistance.
Especially in the first 15 to 30 minutes. So there was a huge number of calls, and there's a reason why people had to wait in the queue for a very long time.
The call center currently mans both the 158 COVID-19 helpline and the 161 food ration helpline. The request that will be made via email must include your name address, Suva-Nosori lockdown zone, mobile number, and number of household members. Lena Reese, FBC News.
Earlier today, Prime Minister Borenge Bainimarama and the Minister for Economy visited the Fiji Procurement Office, where the logistic arrangements of the distribution of food ration packs are being made. The packs are for families along the Suva-Nosori corridor, genuinely in need of food due to the lockdown. The ministry currently has 30,000 food packs and have the ability to arrange for more. New Zealand stands ready to further assist Fiji in the fight against COVID-19 or this COVID-19 crisis. Fiji is battling the second wave of the infections as community screening and swabbing continues. Kritika Kumar reports.
New Zealand has committed to provide 250,000 AstraZeneca vaccines, which will come from their domestic supply. There are several steps to walk through, including approval of the vaccine by New Zealand's Medicines Authority MedSafe. Head of COVID-19 Vaccination Task Force, Dr. Rachel Devi, says the current batch of vaccines will be dispatched to different priority groups.
The current priority is we still had some frontliners left in the last batch because there's quite a few of them. So we're definitely prioritizing them. We're definitely prioritizing vulnerable populations.
With the first two batches, the Ministry of Health has inoculated 10% of the targeted population. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
Coming up, Vanuatu students ordered to pay fines. And Savu Savu welcomes first yacht under Blue Lane. The second wave of COVID-19 and its threat forced a 56-hour lockdown, which came into effect at 8 last night in the Suva-Nosori corridor. A complete lockdown means no movement at all in these areas until 4 a.m. on Monday. Apenisa Wangarandovu went around the capital city today and files this report.
It was an unusual sight for a Saturday. The streets deserted. These places, which normally jammed packed, are empty as people stayed indoors to follow the COVID-19 restrictions. On a normal Saturday, this park would be the busiest in the Central Division. Today it's different. People are staying indoors to save lives. The government adopted this measure to control the spread of the virus, allowing for health officials to carry out screening and swab testing to happen. Police officers are at every checkpoint, ensuring that those who are moving around are doing so only for the purpose of medical emergencies. The supermarket, which is normally a hustle and bustle from early morning, remained closed. The only things inside are birds and few street dwellers. The Suva bus stand has never been as quiet as it is right now. This can be the new normal for months if people continue to disregard measures by the Health Ministry in trying to rid COVID-19 from our midst. Apenisa Wangarandovu, FBC News.
Prince Charles Park in Nandi has been considered for isolation and screening purposes for the Ministry of Health. Minister for Local Government Pramila Kumar says they stand ready to assist the Health Ministry should the need arise. Given the danger and risk of the B1617 variant, the minister says all their facilities will be made available.
Discussions did take place in Nandi for Prince Charles Park, if that can be used for isolation or for fever testing or for any other purposes if need arises.
A Suva magistrate today reminded 10 Vanuatu tertiary students that they are in a foreign country and should obey its law and order. These students pleaded guilty to charges of failing to comply with the public health protection notice issued by the Permanent Secretary for Health. The court heard they had gathered for a drinking session at a house along Nailuva Road in Suva and breached social gatherings protocol by doing so. The court also heard that majority were students sponsored by the Vanuatu government. They have been ordered to pay fines of $300 each within a month, and failure to pay will result in them serving 30 days imprisonment. Savu Savu this week received its first yacht to come under government's Blue Lane initiative. The Discovery sailed from Hawaii last month and is berthed at the Copper Shed Marina with its two member crew disembarking for shore on Thursday. Eleanor View caught up with the duo.
Finally on land, Captain B.J. Rollison and Mark Romano could not contain their excitement as they finally set foot on land after sailing for 22 days.
We came in 2 days ago, the 28th, April 28th.
So it's directly to South.
Directly to Savu.
With the rest of the world closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Rollison and Romano took advantage of Fiji's Blue Lane initiative and were scheduled to berth at Ndenarau. But 3 days away, they were informed of Fiji's current situation.
I was afraid that Fiji would say, no, you have to go someplace else.
The Discovery arrived into Savu on Tuesday, where it was put straight into the quarantine zone, the Niue Basin.
We sat over there for 2 days because they wanted to make sure we didn't have COVID.
The duo had been in Hawaii for over a year due to the pandemic. And with Fiji's current situation, there is no telling when they will leave our shores.
We hope to explore the island a lot. Mark wants us to go surfing. I wanted to go take pictures.
The arrival of the Discovery in Savu has now opened the channel for many more to come in the near future.
The Bulla Regatta, I think, coming from Tahiti. And then there's another group you might have heard of, OCC. So they're going to meet here in about, I think they're due in about 2 weeks.
Eleanor Turangaivu, FBC News.
There's a huge spike in the price of vegetables as vendors are unable to get their supplies on time due to the health restrictions. The Suva market vendors say they are forking out extra money to receive goods from suppliers who are outside the containment zone and have no choice but to pass the additional costs to the customers. Jeshulal reports.
Limited supply of fresh vegetables has led to a major increase in prices.
This week we don't really have enough supply. Don't really have enough supply because there's restrictions around the borders. Okay.
Most of the products, the fruits and vegetables that are being sold now, I've seen a rise in about $1 to $2, and it's not as fresh as before.
Market vendors are struggling to sell their stocks.
We are facing a lot of difficulties, especially with the recent price increase of vegetables.
We have increased the price of a heap of cassava to $10 compared to before when we used to sell it at $7 or $8.
Local Government Minister Premila Kumar has requested vendors to not panic and stockpile produce as these are perishable items. With the new lockdown measures coming into effect from this morning, many vendors have lost on their Saturday sales. Jeshulal, FBC News.
And Nadi players assisted. This and more coming up. The Flying Fijians' hope of hosting Ireland at the ANZ Stadium in Suva has been dashed. Salesi Rayasi and Chona Nareki scored a try each for their respective teams in their last game of the Super Rugby Aotearoa season. However, it was Nareki and the Hurricanes that had the last laugh. The Nandi Football Association is making sure its players are well looked after during this period of uncertainty. Nandi players were called in by the team management before they were given some basic food items to help them as they cope with the current situation in the country. These players have been assured by Nandi FA that they will be well looked after. About 25 players were assisted with a week's worth of groceries.
All our players was in weekly wages. It is in their contract when you train for 5 days, you get a wages for $100, $150 a week. So at the moment they are not training, nothing. So what we both discussed to give them at least groceries for every week until this lockdown is going. We plan to go until June.
Broncos staged their greatest NRL comeback last night after beating Gold Coast Titans 36-28. It was a historical win for the Brisbane. A heavy rain alert is now in force for the eastern half and southern parts of Viti Levu, Kandavu and nearby smaller islands, southern Lao and Lomai Viti groups. A trough of low pressure with associated cloud and showers lines slow moving over the southern parts of Fiji. It is expected to continue to enhance the moist easterly wind flow over the group. In the west, a cloudy and humid day with a chance of showers late at night. Eastwards from Pacific Harbour to Suva, mostly cloudy and rainy conditions prevailed. Up north, variable cloudiness and showers were the order of the day. At sea, moderate to fresh easterly winds, gusty at times, moderate to rough seas. Turning to the tides, the next high tide is at 10:32 tonight, with low tide at 4:26 a.m. Sunrise at 6:20. Outlook for tomorrow for the rest of Fiji: expect cloudy periods with afternoon or evening showers and thunderstorms with heavy falls. Looking further onto Monday, occasional rain, heavy at times, a few thunderstorms over most places. Recapping our main stories: 2 new COVID-19 cases confirmed, food ration helpline inundated with calls, and ministry announces new areas of interest. For these stories and others, you can tune in daily to our sister radio station, Gold FM. To our poll question, this week we're asking, have you downloaded the Care Fiji app? Visit our FBC website to answer. And you can send us newsworthy pictures and videos to email fbcnews@fbc.com.fj or share it with us via our Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And you can also download our FBC app to keep updated with the very latest news and sports, and also listen to our 6 FBC radio stations live. That's your news for tonight. I'll see you again tomorrow. You stay safe. Good night.